Hi, my name is Eva and welcome to this channel. Today we are talking all about herpes, and not in the scare tactics, herpes, you're gonna get herpes and then it's never gonna leave type of situation. Basically the real practical information you need to know to be an informed, sexually active adult. So let's jump right on into it. To start off, these are kind of the main myths about herpes. First of all, the idea that not very many people have it or only promiscuous people have it. No, herpes is super duper common. So there are lots of different strains of herpes, and at least 2 in 3 people have one strain called HSV1, which most commonly manifests in cold sores. HSV1 is usually passed when you're a kid in non-sexual ways. So when you get kissed by relatives or different forms of skin-to-skin contact growing up. And then HSV2, which most commonly exists as genital herpes, about 1 in 6 have HSV2. It's also important to note that you can get either strain on either your mouth or your genitals. So you can get HSV1 cold sore type situation on your genitals, and you can get HSV2 on your mouth. The second one is that if you get herpes, it'll drastically change your sex life. No, both of these strains are super manageable. You can take medication either on a regular basis to manage outbreaks and symptoms, or just when you're experiencing an outbreak. The last kind of big important myth to address, you'd be able to tell if someone has herpes, or herpes is going to definitely be a huge impact on your sex life and health. No, most people who have herpes don't have symptoms or will never have an outbreak. That continues this idea that like lots of people have herpes, so it's not a big deal. But now that we've established herpes as not a scary thing, but just something else that we need to be aware of when we are getting sexy with different people and in terms of managing our sexual health. So, how do we manage our sexual health when it comes to herpes? Herpes can be spread through fluids, semen, vaginal fluids, but it can also be spread through skin-to-skin contact. So that can be like grinding or tripping. So this means that using barrier methods like condoms and dental dams can, and making sure that you are washing your sex toys, help decrease this sharing of fluids. They are not completely effective in terms of decreasing your risk to 0 for herpes because of that skin-to-skin contact. So that means in terms of practically navigating your sexual health, do use barriers, but also be aware that if you are going to be doing any type of skin-to-skin contact with someone, there is a chance that herpes could be spread in that type of encounter. You're also more likely to spread herpes if you do have a current active outbreak. So if you have a cold sore, maybe don't be making out with people or performing oral sex, or if you have a genital outbreak, don't be receiving oral sex or having vaginal or anal sex. But you can also spread the virus right before you have an outbreak or when you have no symptoms. The goal is minimizing risk. Good thing you can do is talk about outbreaks with your partner. Do you have a cold sore right now, and just talking about like STI status, but also again being aware that you can't 100% decrease all risks. Moving on from spreading herpes, another part of managing your sexual health is checking in on your own body and getting STI tested and just kind of being aware of what's normal for your body and recognizing it if anything is abnormal. So in terms of noticing if you yourself have symptoms of herpes potentially, again, it's important to note most people never have symptoms, but oftentimes the first outbreak will happen between 2 to 20 days after you have contracted the virus. And that first outbreak might look like your skin feels itchy or tingly before the sores appear. Also, oftentimes before people's first outbreak, they might feel like they have flu-like symptoms, or their joints and muscles might feel sore, or it might feel uncomfortable to pee. Those are important things to think about in terms of checking in on your own body and sexual health, and if you think that you might be experiencing some symptoms. In terms of everybody's favorite topic, STI testing, maybe that's just my favorite topic. STI testing for herpes is kind of interesting. I'm from Ontario, so most of my information is related to STI testing in Ontario. If you live in other places, drop info in the comments. But in Ontario, you can get tested for herpes if you have a sore that is currently present on your body. So a doctor or healthcare practitioner can swab it and get that tested. Otherwise, you are not automatically getting tested for herpes when you go to do your usual STI testing. You are not, because you would need a blood test, and in Ontario you need to go to a special lab and it's not covered, so it would cost about $160. So healthcare practitioners will actively dissuade you from getting tested for herpes. Also because of all the herpes stigma. So they're worried that if you tested positive, that stigma will impact you more negatively than just living with herpes, because as we said before, lots and lots and lots of people have some kind of strain of herpes. So that sucks that we just don't know really if we have herpes unless we've tested a sore regularly. So that's important when you're exchanging sexual health information with your partners before you choose to get sexy, that you are navigating a certain level of risk if you decide to not use barriers or have any type of skin-to-skin contact with them, because you don't know necessarily people's status in terms of herpes unless they've tested a sore recently or they've decided to get a blood test. Moving again away from STI testing to if you do get a positive result. In terms of maintenance, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can take medication either on a regular basis to manage outbreaks or just when you get outbreaks to manage those. Also, an important thing to note is that over time, the outbreaks usually get milder and the symptoms get less intense. Also, you're more likely to get an outbreak if your immune system is working in overdrive. So if you're sick or stressed or on your period, an outbreak is more likely to come up. Said lots of things about herpes in this video. Just to summarize, use barriers and negotiate that with your partner, and talk about the potential risks of the different sex acts that you choose to perform. Decrease stigma around herpes. Don't make herpes jokes. And call other people out when they're making herpes jokes. Be aware that currently right now there's not a lot that you can do to absolutely get rid of any risk that you have of getting herpes. So you can do your best to decrease the risk. There's always gonna be some. It's gonna be okay. In terms of people who do have herpes, you are still hecka cute and dateable. Also, like I said before, literally anyone can get herpes. From a consistent partner, from one night stand, monogamous people, polyamorous people. So having herpes does not say anything about you as a human being. Just like, yeah. Nope. I will also leave some resources in the description. I love the Instagram comic My Boyfriend Has Herpes, and also Ella Dawson has written a bunch of really smart stuff on herpes on her blog. And if you have any awesome resources for herpes or people talking about living with STIs, please do leave that in the comments as well. But that is everything I have to say on this topic. Please do like this video if you thought it had some practical, non-scare tactic-y advice about herpes, and subscribe if you aren't already. You can also follow me on social media and support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. If you get a coffee a week, you could maybe support inclusive sex ed. I have a really awesome video on there, assumptions about my sex and relationships, so that's fun. You can check that out if you support me on Patreon. But yeah, that's all for me today. Have a lovely day. And oftentimes that's framed as like, anybody could have herpes, you should be scared all the time, but that's not really what it means.